Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we are diving deep into the biology of an ectopic pregnancy. We're going to look at what's happening moment by moment when this internal crisis unfolds.
So let's start with this really fundamental question, because it sets up a profound conflict inside the body. Let's break down exactly what happens when the journey of a fertilized egg gets derailed.
Okay, so on one hand, you have the normal journey. A fertilized egg takes a slow 4 to 5 day trip down the fallopian tube to the uterus, where it implants. But in a derailed journey, that trip gets cut short. The embryo gets stuck, and it starts to implant way too early, right there inside the fallopian tube.
And that, right there, is the fundamental problem. The fallopian tube is just a passageway, it's not a home. So when this blastocyst, the very early embryo, implants there, it's like trying to build a house on ground that just can't support it.
Now, a totally normal and crucial biological process kicks in called trophoblastic invasion. This is how the embryo literally burrows in to tap into the mother's blood supply to get nourishment. In the uterus, this is the beautiful start of the placenta. But here, in the wrong location, this life-giving process becomes incredibly life-threatening.
And this slide just lays out the stark difference perfectly. You see, the uterus has this thick, rich lining that's specifically designed to handle this invasion. It's ready for it. The fallopian tube, on the other hand, has a super thin wall. It has absolutely no defense against this process. It just wasn't built for it.
So here's how that destructive sequence plays out. The trophoblast starts burrowing into the tubal wall. Its cells start eroding that delicate tissue, and pretty quickly they break through into the small blood vessels inside the wall. And that's it. The bleeding starts right inside the tube.
And this situation actually has a medical name, hemasalpinx. It means the fallopian tube is filling up with blood. All that collecting blood causes the tube to swell up and stretch, and this is what sets the stage for a full-blown crisis.
So from this point on, the situation just can't last. The body is at a crossroads, really, and this tubal pregnancy is going to end in one of 3 ways. And unfortunately, all of them are dangerous.
Let's look at the first possible outcome. It's called a tubal abortion. Now, this isn't a rupture, it's more like an expulsion.
So, in this scenario, the growing gestational sac actually detaches from the wall it's burrowed into. It then gets pushed out of the open end of the fallopian tube. The problem is, this causes bleeding that spills out into the abdominal cavity. And because of gravity, that blood pools in the lowest point of the pelvis, an area called the pouch of Douglas.
All right, now for the second outcome. This is the one everyone fears. It's the most acute, the most dangerous possibility.
And the process is just brutally simple. As the embryo and all that collected blood keep expanding, the fallopian tube is stretched thinner and thinner way past its breaking point.
A rupture is exactly what it sounds like. The tube just bursts open, and all that bleeding that was contained inside now becomes a massive, rapid hemorrhage directly into the abdomen. This is a true life-threatening medical emergency.
And finally, there's a third, more insidious path. This one isn't a single catastrophic event, but more of a slow-burning, ongoing problem. Yeah, instead of a sudden explosion, think of this as a slow leak. You have small, repeated bleeds. The body, trying to deal with this, starts to wall off the area, forming a mass of old blood and tissue. This is sometimes called a pelvic hematocele. So the body's attempt to contain the problem ironically ends up creating a whole new chronic issue. This mass can form adhesions, which is like scar tissue, sticking itself to the bowel or other nearby organs, and that can cause all sorts of long-term pain and inflammation.
So you have to wonder, right? With all this chaos happening in one tiny spot, what on earth is the rest of the body being told is going on?
Well, here's the crazy part. The body's hormonal system is often acting like everything's perfectly normal. The corpus luteum in the ovary just keeps pumping out progesterone, which tricks the body into thinking it's having a totally healthy pregnancy. It's why pregnancy tests are still positive.
And this just shows the tragic disconnect. The uterus, listening to those hormones, undergoes what's called the decidual reaction. It builds up this thick, welcoming lining, preparing a soft bed for an embryo that's in the wrong place and is never going to arrive.
So what happens when the internal bleeding, the hemoperitoneum, gets severe? Well, that's when the local crisis goes systemic and the whole body starts sounding the alarm.
These aren't just symptoms. These are desperate alarms. Hypovolemia, a critical drop in blood volume, makes the heartbeat way faster. That's tachycardia, trying to compensate.
When it can't keep up, blood pressure plummets, leading to shock. And that classic shoulder tip pain you hear about? That's from blood in the abdomen, irritating the diaphragm, sending a pain signal all the way up a nerve to the shoulder.
Which brings us to the fundamental, unavoidable conclusion we've been building towards. Why is this condition never, ever a viable pregnancy?
Well, at the end of the day, it's all about location. The fallopian tube has no supportive lining. There's no room to grow. The blood supply is nowhere near what's needed, and in a cruel twist of biology, that invasive process that's meant to create life ends up destroying the very environment it's in, guaranteeing its wean failure and putting the mother's life in grave danger.
So when you boil it all down, an ectopic pregnancy isn't really a disease. It's a completely normal biological process that's just happening in a catastrophic location. And it's a powerful reminder that for a new life to begin, the right environment is literally everything.